Thank you for having me. Happy to be here. My name's Ariel Friedman. I am primarily a musician, or I was for most of my life, still am, but now I'm also a poet. Always was drawn to writing poetry as a kid, and then stopped for a long time, and then I had children, and then who knew, but that's this very generative, creative time. So all of the poems in this chapbook that came out about a year and a half ago are mostly about motherhood and also my childhood and sort of, putting all those generational pieces together. And since I'm also a musician, a couple of these poems that I'll read tonight are also songs. I started it as, I would write them as poems and then I turn them into songs. And I have a duo with my sister, and this album is all about motherhood, and it's coming out in the spring along with Sam's book. So some of these that you'll hear are also songs, but I will not be singing them tonight. All right, so I'm going to start with a poem I wrote that was originally published in Pangyris, and this is called In Charge of Birds. We follow the robin as long as we can, tracing the curlicue of her path. She hops behind bushes, and we crouch to find her. She floats to a low branch, and we marvel at the effortless levitation, the slightest stirring of feathers. I watch her as my son does, as though this were also the first robin of my third spring on earth. When she finally disappears, my son pleads, more bird, looks at me as though I could rise above the white pine, comb its needles with my wings. As a child, I mistook dreams for reality, was sure I could fly. That once I'd soared so low over the stairs, I'd grazed its tufted carpet with my fingertips as though it were hillside grass. I tell my son I am not in charge of birds, that they are bound only by a contract with worms and the open beaks of their babies, the flow of tropospheric currents, and whatever genetic programming turns their bodies south each winter, as though they were compasses that cannot be held in our palms. We walk to the park, and I promise him we will see more birds. We will pull them from the sky with the force of our desire. We'll fly low over the hillside. And now another child-based poem about the mundanity of motherhood and the transcendence of the things your children point out to you. This is called Look Up. Look up, you remind yourself daily. Look up from the screen-cracked phone, from the oatmeal dropped on the floor, the sponge still wet in your hand. Look up from the steps that could lead anywhere, the grocery bags that heavy your shoulders like milk-full breasts. Look up from the walk that needs shoveling, the cat that needs feeding. Look up tremulous after reading it in a book, after the snow has photo-negatived each tree, branch bone underbelly, white shadow above. Look up from the pile of snow you've made into a cat. Watch as your son carries a dusting in his mittens, pats it onto the earless head. See him find a yellowed leaf, help him separate the midrib from the blade, see the blade become a whisker. How he struggles to poke it into the cheek, gives up, hollers up, and runs to the bottom of the hill where he waits for you. Look up later when the sun sinks, when the sun orange pinks the sky, when you begin your walk home from the playground, when your son says, "Mommy, moon," and you marvel together at the waning gibbous that gathers the sky around her like cloth. Then, "Where babies?" he asks. And you know he means stars, which are anything but babies, though you don't tell him so. You tell him it's not dark enough yet, that certain things can only be seen in the dark. The moon's many children, for instance. Tiny and somewhere an entire world.
Do you see that phone?
Oh yeah, the moon was amazing last night. Yeah, the harvest moon, right?
Yes.
Speaking of moons, I just realized there's moons appear in this poem as well. Connection. This is a poem I wrote in the style of that old childhood rhyme, The House That Jack Built. And this is about my maternal grandparents who had their house built for them in the 1950s. And my mom was born there, her three older brothers, and then I ended up going to college near those grandparents and spending a lot of time with them. So this is sort of like a generational story, starting with how my mother was conceived, which is an interesting story. Highland Park, Illinois, 1952 to 2020. This is the house my grandparents built, split level brick with a brook out back. This is my grandmother, aproned and aching for a fourth child who shapes dough into moons. And these are her sons who eat the moons that my grandmother made in the house my grandparents built. This is the note she leaves on the table, and this is my grandfather arriving home. This is the kitchen, unusually dark, and this is the switch that turns on the light, illuminating the note, which is perfectly cursived. I'm sorry we don't see eye to eye. These are the hands that grip the table that matches the chair in which he sits in the house my grandparents built. These are the headlights that split the night. This is the relief that fills the split. This is the bed where later they lie, and this is the shawl that covers the belly that grows my mother in the house my grandparents built. This is my mother, whose hands play piano, and these are the cuts that scrape her hands. These are the brothers who lemon the cuts, who hide in her closet, jump out in the dark, that once cloaked the note that my grandmother wrote in the house my grandparents built. This is the man my mother will marry, and here are the daughters and music they make. These are the daughters who grow up singing, who write songs out in ink that they turn into sound as they travel around, and here are the stanzas left unsung as their grandparents are buried one by one. These are the people attending their shows, and this is the virus that keeps them at home, here, where their children say, "Sing, Mama," anyway, who delight in the rhymes they hear in the songs that they sing while they bake, turning dough into shapes that melt in the mouths, that call out in the dark, that quiets the lark, whose song writes the day, that lifts the airplane, that arcs the blue as it carries us, me, my mother, my son, back to the house my grandparents built. Thank you. I'm just going to read a couple more. Actually, just two more. I have one new poem that ostensibly is about to come out in a new literary journal online, hopefully this month. It's new, but I started it about 3 years ago. My son's almost 7, and this is about his 4th birthday. So, will I live forever? You ask me at bedtime on your 4th birthday. And when I say no, no one lives forever. And you say, but numbers go forever. My mind traces the imagined course of your life. 8-year-old turned teenager, gangly kid in a dorm turned 20-something in a queen bed, cuddled with the shadowy figure of not me, until you are old, older than me, and suddenly I am not in the picture. A pencil drawing of us, me erased, and it takes some time to soar back into my body, next to you, on your bed, on the floor in my bedroom, a place I can't imagine you'll ever leave. I tell you yes. Numbers go forever. Squint, and you'll see them curl over the horizon, carrying the future in their tiny mathematical hands. Someday, I tell you, we'll look down at them, or maybe up, our essences scattered like light through a prism into anything but numbers. I'm going to leave you with a poem I wrote after seeing Hadestown, the musical. Anyone seen it? So good. And the whole time you're sitting there in the theater and you just want it to have a happier ending than you know it's going to have, like a lot of the old stories. So this is called Happy Ending. And here it is. Happy Ending. Catch the story midstream and hear the pounding doubt between his temples. See the pivot, simple, on the balls of his feet. Eurydice's gasp of realization, not unlike Lot's wife, who, upon turning, glimpses her flaming city one last time before she goes rigid. But these are endings, not beginnings. And the difference between stories and real life is that real life keeps going. I scroll the headlines, 1.5 degrees and climbing, horizons like the walls of Hades. When you ask for a story, I know you mean one about cartoon trains, the chase and rescue, the close call. But in these stories, you'll find that nothing saves Sodom, that Eurydice is swallowed whole by the earth. I tidy the kitchen, read another email urging a call to my representatives. This isn't the world I wanted to give you. Once you said women could not be rabbis, and I wondered at that trope 3,000 years old and lodged already in your small bones. What other stories do you know that I haven't told you? Do you know how long Orpheus walks to emerge from the underworld? How lonely he must feel and helpless, how close he comes to the daylight? Do you know that our seas will rise? That the more stunning the sunset, the more toxins in the atmosphere? That when snow falls, I ache to swallow the landscape? Maybe you know already that Orpheus finds his bride, fights to hold on, step after step through the earth's intestines, ahead, the growing circle of light. Maybe you know already how it ends, though when I tell you, I'll describe a finger of fresh air that finds its way to his cheek, the quickening of his pace as he approaches the threshold. This time, he won't look back. Thank you so much.